Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Creative Contact. I'm your host, Kia Orion. Thank you so much for tuning in. You could be anywhere in the world, but you are here with me, and I appreciate that. In this episode, this is, first of all, my last week in the not-so-sunny, not-so-warm Buenos Aires. It's cold. I had two space heaters going. The building I'm in is so old and broken that none of the heating system works. So I basically have like a little space heater that follows me around like a Pikachu in yellow version, Pokemon Yellow. Shout out to the OG Game Boy Color. Just follows me around and heats my individual room because it is so cold out here for your boy. I'm a wuss at this point. That's just what it is. That's what happens when you chase the summer for 6 years. I'm part lizard now, so I cannot do cold anymore. So now it's straight up beanie, jacket, long pants, socks inside, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, because your boy's cold, y'all. So got my little Pikachu heater, follow me around. I'm ready. I'm ready to go home. I'm tired of being cold. I've been, cause I know when I go home, I grub pretty hard. So I've been cutting, has maybe 6-7 weeks now, and I'm definitely feeling it. Like low carbs at this point. I've kind of cut out as much as I can. I'm probably 16 kcal a day, 1600, and it's definitely getting to me. I'm getting cranky. I'm getting tired. I'm not sleeping great. Like sex drive is gone. Like I'm definitely ready to like hit a little bit of a deload, hit a maintenance, eat some good grub, and get back to kind of normal, like lifting exercises, feeling good. So I'm kind of like the end of this cut, ready to wrap this up, starting, finally getting some 6-pack action coming back. But because I know when I go home, it's chill time. So I want to get like in shape-ish, so that way I just have like some long, I have a long runway to just kind of like enjoy myself there at home. So end of a cut, and I'm cold. I'm ready, y'all. It's been a great 4 months, but I'm feeling good. Feeling like it's time to make it happen back with my folks for a couple weeks. And then I've got other adventures and stuff planned later on that. But that'll be another pod. This is not going to be the Buenos Aires recap pod. I'm going to probably do that next week. When I get home, it's my birthday next week, so I'm going to do like a typical Kia birthday pod. The way I've been framing it, things I've been thinking about for that pod is going to be things I've changed my mind on, things I've learned, and maybe like things I'm excited about. So that's just a little teaser for what's to come next week. I think every birthday, every time I'm making a lap around the sun, I just kind of like to reflect on, what's changed for me, what I'm excited about, where I'm at. Just kind of, again, these are the little time capsules for your boy. And there's a lot that I realize I've changed my mind on, a lot I've learned over the last year that I'm excited to share with you next week. Also add some Buenos Aires kind of recap in that. This episode is going to be, I'll probably do some Buenos Aires in this one too, just because it's been on my mind a lot. But the main thing I want to talk to you about this time is creativity stuff, especially screenwriting. If you have been following along, last week I talked to you that I got super inspired. It's kind of this crazy, the way that the world works, inspiration, creativity works, is I finished my novel that I've been working on for the last few months. When some change, just a rough draft, not everything, but just whenever I finish a creative project, I like to kind of let it breathe. I like to let it sit for a second, kind of stew, and then come back to it later with fresh eyes. So it's not like I'm like still hard charging on that. It's just kind of like it's done. It's kind of in the drawer. I talked to my writing coach about it. I'm going to get an editor and then come back to that maybe a little bit later on. But for now, that's just kind of like on the back burner, just chilling. I've got this novel. I'm super stoked to show this to you. It's like very experimental. But it still needs a lot of work. So, that was kind of the back burner. I talked about this last week. This new idea came to me that I had like over a year ago now. I had one scene in my mind. I had one sort of a scene, but not a whole lot of backstory with it. I was kind of coming up with backstory, but nothing really fit. And I was like, I just wrote the scene just because let me just have this scene just so it's out of my head and on paper. But it never quite felt right, like in terms of nothing. I had a story for it, but I wasn't like super compelled. I didn't feel like that creative tug. And then the day after the novel, I finished that, it just hit me. I was eating lunch, and it was like all the pieces, like one was like blinko blocks, whatever it's called. It's just like, bleep, 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 like, bleep, 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 bleep. It's just like all like, it just fell directly into place. I was like, this is crazy. And obviously there was still a lot of all these stories. It's kind of a process, but like everything just kind of clicked. It was like, oh, this is what it is. That's what makes sense. And what sparked it off was thinking about it as a musical, like not necessarily like a stage play musical, but like a La La Land, or like La La Land mixed with 8 Mile. That's sort of the way I'm thinking about it. Is it has this, is about kind of this, you know, it's very true to life. It's about this young guy, young white dude, aspiring, you know, singer, and all these other characters that are somewhat true to life. Others are fictionalized, but there are like this musical element to it where there'll be like songs, at least in my vision for this, like interspersed throughout the movie, like La La Land, or like Rocket Man, or A Star is Born, or something like along those lines. And this is going to sound very overconfident. I said this before. This is going to sound, you know, maybe a little cocky, but I listen to like the La La Land soundtrack, and I'm like, never in a million years. I listen to Rocket Man soundtrack. I'm like, above my pay grade. Love that music. It's not for me. I listen to Hamilton, and I'm like, I could do that shit. I'm like, it's just raps. The Hamilton sound is like, it's just raps. I'm like, that's what I do. That's what I've been doing the last decade, dude. I'm like, if you need beats and raps, that's what I got for you. So I was like, I could totally do some shit like that. If it's like has this hip hop angle where like La La Land is jazz, you know, Star is Born is kind of like classic kind of piano rock. But I'm like, if it's a hip hop musical, I'm like, that's my bread and butter. That's my sauce. I was like, I could totally, it's not like the Hamilton beats are like that hot. You know what I mean? I'm like, I could totally do some shit like that. So, I guess like this is maybe where like ignorance is bliss, where I probably just don't understand how hard it is to pull one of those things off. So I'm like, you know, I could like, it gives me enough of a kick, and that's like, let me try to figure this shit out. So I'd always been intimidated by the screenwriting form because it's so different than novels. It's different than short stories. It's different. The prose, everything is different. The font is different. The structure is different. Even how do you write it? You know, like I've never had anything that was so, I don't want to say formulaic, but I guess so structured in terms of like, this is like, you have these beats, you hit them here. This is like 3 acts. It's this tension. You need to hit this by this, like page 30 is this. So it's honestly just intimidating, but that gave me the activation energy to be like, let me finally learn it. I have this idea now. I kind of know where I want to take it. I have some of those main beats. I have these kind of main characters that are kind of in every story. And I was like, let me finally learn how to do this shit. So I got a couple of like, Googled around like what are the top books on screenwriting, went through those. Because it's not like you need to learn everything in there. It was just basically, I knew I just needed help with the structure. How do you, it's an art, so it goes super deep, but I just wanted to start, I wanted to get writing. So it's like, help me figure out how to just like piece this together. And like a lot of art, I found I kind of work great in these sprints where I almost become obsessive with an idea, and I almost need to like get it out of me, just to like, it's like, it's hard to express this compulsion, but it's like the best way I can express it is almost like when you're a kid, maybe when you're young and you're feral and you like, maybe like a sexual urge where you're like, oh, you're just like really like, it's sort of like pent up like sexual tension. You were like, like, cause I remember, being like 17, 18, 19, you're just like very primal. It's like this intense kind of sexual tension within you that you're like, it's very top of mind. That I don't feel that anymore in a sexual way, which thank God. But now I feel that in a creative way, where it's like this thing in me that's like, I need to get this. I'm like, it's hard for me to concentrate or do anything else. I was like, let me just double down, read these screenwriting books, and basically they helped me kind of like outline these certain beats. So there's one that's a really famous one. It's called like Screenplay, I actually think is the name of it. Cool, kind of dense and deep. That was good. I loved this one called Save the Cat. And it was like, forget all the fluff. It was like, these are kind of like the main pieces of a screenplay. Hit this by this page. It was like act 1, like this is when you insert like your subplot. This is the love interest. Like this is when you have like a midpoint. This is your kiss of death. Like, and if you think about it, a lot of movies, they all have these same things, like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, any like typical hero's journey like that. It's gonna have a certain amount of characters that do certain things. Like you're gonna have a guide, you're gonna have the hero, you're gonna have like the comedic relief, you're gonna have the enemy's main lieutenant. Like, and there's a certain way that you can kind of like do things that when you look at movies, they all, not all, but like in certain genres tend to fit a certain formula. And a lot of those just kind of clicked into place for me. Like I already had these characters that were people actually in my life, some of them fictionalized, but for the most part, very real. Like the guy, the comedic thing, like the girl, like all these things that I was like, oh, I can kind of piece all these together. So I read those couple books. I kind of outlined these different pieces, and then I just hammered it out. It was almost, I mean, I love this type of thing, but it's because I am part robot. Like this is the type of, I love those sprints when it's like almost monastic in a way, where it's like, I'll wake up 5:45, I do my little like morning thing, I hit the gym, I'm like writing by 9. It's like I write from 9 to noon, I like eat lunch, tend to do like housekeeping things, and then I write again from like 2 to 5, 2 to 6. It's like 2 chunks of just like totally focused, dead to the world. Like I'm just in it. It's like 3 to 4 hour chunks. I'm just like in it at the keyboard, like learning and also applying. It's like learning and applying. And then I'd eat dinner, and then I'd go for a long walk. There's like this park out here, and I'd continue to like, it's interesting. It was almost a different part of the creative process where you weren't in front of the keyboard, but you're still writing. And like a lot of I think the sticking points that I found writing this rough draft, I was able to actually find the connective tissue when I was walking. Like when I'd be writing during the day, there'd be I'd come up against kind of roadblocks, certain things, whether it was like how to get from a point A to point B, or something doesn't make sense in a character's backstory or something. And that's what going on those walks go for. Like, I'm trying to hit my 10,000 steps. And in those walks in the evening, I would often be able to find that connect. I would have a problem in my mind, and I would take that with me to the walk. So I'd go on a walk and say, let me spend this time like consciously trying to work through one of like parts of this, that like this issue that I'm working towards with the character, or maybe a place in the scene that things are kind of sticking. And man, it was a beautiful week. It definitely was not something I could be able to do, I think, sustainably, because it was kind of so intense. But I feel really blessed to be able to have that space to do that sort of thing. But I find that I tend to work really well like that. Like these sort of like moments where it's just, you're kind of dead to the world. Like, I don't think I took a phone call. Like, I was just like, and I did one dinner with a friend, and then the rest of it was just like completely dedicated mental horsepower to these characters, to this story, just to get it out, the rough draft. Completely obsessive, but that's the way that, I find that I work. And so I wanted to talk to you kind of about what that process looks like. So I have this sort of method that I found is how I taught myself how to make beats. It's how I taught myself how to mix and master. It's how I've been learning how to write novels and poetry, and now learning how to write screenplays. It's how I, learn photography and all these things. And it's very much a monkey see, monkey do sort of style, where I'll find things that I love, that I find really inspiring to me, and then I'll like break those down or analyze them, and straight up do my best to replicate it or copy it. Like actually copy it. I'm like, I'll listen to a beat, a Just Blaze beat, and be like, let me find the sample, and actually try my best to remake the exact beat. Because what actually happens is you never can, because there's a zillion different circumstances, so you never actually can remake the exact same thing. But along that process, you learn what it is that they're doing to maybe get to that. And then along the way too, because you're your own person, you kind of add your special sauce, and it becomes its own certain thing. So let's say I might love a Drake song. 3 huge influences for me. It's like Drake, Frank Ocean, Anderson .Paak. So when it comes to making music, that's sort of I'm just like, it's like kind of a Drakey, but R&B, and maybe some like acoustic live instrumentation from Anderson .Paak, and maybe some like kind of like emotional, abstract, metaphorical lyrics from Frank Ocean. I'm not saying I'm even close to as good as even like 1/100 of those guys, but what I'm saying is you have this kind of melting pot. And so I did the same thing with this. It's the same way I've done with my, when it comes to writing prose. I think, there's like Juno Diaz, who I love, and David Sedaris, who I love, and these other artists, other writers who, like, while I'm writing, I'll have their books pulled up in like a PDF to actually see what they're doing. I'll be like, how did David Sedaris tackle this dialogue? I'll be like, how did Junot Diaz like describe this person? How did he start his way into the story? Like, what is this, a first person or second person perspective on a story? How did he, like, what are the beats along this story that he used? So I did the exact same thing with screenwriting. I was like, what are some movies that I love that are kind of not in this genre, but sort of musical based that I was like, I really loved. So my kind of three for this were, but the main one was La La Land. That's the one that, like, I love that movie. I love the love story. I think I love the music, the dancing, the music numbers, all that stuff. So La La Land is like one of the main principal ones. The next one was 8 Mile. Like I said, that was a huge inspiration for me too. I love the rap battles. My protagonist is like this, young white dude trying to be a rock star. So it's like, obviously there's a lot in common there. And then Straight Outta Compton, I loved that same way they tie music, the way music is such a big part into that story. It's not like I've seen that movie a bunch of times and I'm like, wow, I'm a biggest Straight Outta Compton fan, but like, I love the movie and the way that it sort of tied music in, so I thought that would be helpful. And then also Atlanta, the TV show Atlanta by Donald Glover, was really helpful because there's a lot of characters in my story. A lot of them are black folks. And so I was like, how do I, but also it's not just like, yeah, street black dude. It's like, how do I love this sort of like the weirdness, the dialogue, the realness of like Atlanta, the way that he has these kind of like different characters, and almost all the characters in Atlanta, they're all African American. So I like that, spending a lot of time with black folks. I think writing those characters for me is always something that's really touchy, of course. And for a while I was even questioning if it's something I should do, because as a white dude, like, that's not my experience. But those are important characters that are pivotal in my story, like my personal life story, and then also in this story too. I was like, let me make this true to life, and so I want to make that dialogue as real as possible without it feeling like stereotypes. And I think that Donald Glover does a great job of that in Atlanta. And so those, I was like constantly kind of referencing those, especially, like I said, the La La Land 8 Mile piece, to sort of like see what those sort of beats are along those scripts. So I'd have my script pulled up, and then I'd have this other one pulled up, this window that would have like 3 or 4 scripts in it. And if you've never heard a script, like, it's a different beast. I really struggled with it first, I'm going to be honest with you, because it's not prose. It's a very strange, and it's written kind of weird. It's like these like small, like interlacing actions, and then it's mostly dialogue. But the dialogue, it's just different. And so like getting used to reading scripts and stuff too was kind of cool. But then once I did, I was like, man, it is fascinating to see the movie. It's like you get to see how the sausage is made. It'd be like, I don't know sports super well, but imagine it's like in football, it's like, imagine you had like, I don't know, like Bill Belichick's playbook. I think he got fired or something, but like, imagine you had like a main head coach. Imagine they were like, here's the playbook, and you can just Google it and be like, wow, these are all the plays I'm seeing these guys running. Or Kansas City Chiefs, whatever, that big white dude with the mustache, walrus looking dude. Imagine you just like have his playbook. And that's what scripts are like, where it's crazy seeing the movie and then reading the script, because you see the changes they've made. You've also I don't know, to me, it almost feels like I'm seeing somebody like in a naked or something. It's like this kind of like thrilling thing to be able to see this kind of building blocks of the story that they made the movie for. So it was really cool, like being able to kind of dig into those and then definitely steal ideas, and you see kind of techniques and stuff that they use in terms of how to set shots up, how to start in, like how to come into a scene, how to fade out or transition to another scene, little dialogue bits and pieces. And so it was cool, like getting that rough draft down. As always, I'm sure this thing has a zillion holes, but I was like, I wanted to just get a draft like from start to finish done within the week. And I was able to do it. I made it by about half a day, the last kind of half day that I just kind of went back. I've been editing it and seeing now kind of different holes in that, like screenwriting, because it's its own art. It's obviously going to take me a while to learn. But I think that's where just doing the thing for me is often like any sort of physical training. I approach it the same way. Like, you can read as much as you want about macros and the best lifts and like how to count, like whatever it is, count reps or whatever it is. But it's like until you get like time under tension, like under the bar, you don't actually know what that feels like. And so for me, that's what this was. It was just an experiment in how to write a screenplay. What would I do different next time? For my next script, I have another idea I want to talk to you about. I'd spend more time outlining because I had the story in my mind. I just didn't really want to lose it. I felt the inspiration. I was like, let me just get this down. Let me rock and roll. I think because of the formula of stories, at least when it comes to screenplays, if you can plan that out, it makes it a lot easier than when you sit down and you know exactly what you're writing. It's like, you know how to get from A to B, from like C to F. It's like, okay, these are the exact beats that I want along the story, and like spend more time like laying those out. Because there were times, and maybe this is also the part of the magic of writing, is that there were times when I had an idea in my mind of what I wanted to happen. And then in the moment while I was writing it, it's almost like the story wanted to be something else. And so I had actually in my mind I wanted to end a certain way. And then when I was writing it, the ending kind of like snuck up on me. It almost like twisted itself while I was writing, which sounds really weird and artsy and highfalutin, but like you kind of know when you're writing, it's like, this is what the story wanted to be something other than what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be more of a drama, like a kind of gritty drama. And it turned out to be a little bit more, I guess, of like a dramedy. Like there's much more comedy. And that might be parts, as an amateur screenwriter, that might be something that is, if I bring to an expert, they might want to cut that stuff. Because to me, those are kind of fun, like character expositions that they might say, we need more tension in the scene. Like we need more drama. We want more conflict here. And those are just things I think come with time as I'll, get better. You send these to people who actually know what they're doing, get feedback, understand the craft. But it was, I think, both really inspiring in one way to be able to say, I can see the movie in my head, and that was really cool to like bring a movie to life on the page. When I'm writing, normally I see it, but it was different. This was really cool in a kind of specific way that felt more cinematic than my novel, in the short stories and things of that nature. At the same time, very discouraging, because I talked to my brother. I was like, dude, how much would it cost to like shoot a short of this? Films ain't cheap. Number two, I have a buddy who works in Hollywood, and he told me, he was like, even with people with credits, he's like, that I've had that like have credits as a writer on a show or have won awards and have like a killer script. And he's like, I've pitched them and we can't get shit made. So for me, I think as someone, I've got kind of indie spirit, I've always struggled with that, of like having to like sit on something and waiting for someone else to choose me. Cause I'm a guy, like, I'm going to choose myself. I'm going to put my own shit out there. I'm going to like hammer it hard. I believe in it. I'm going to do the best I can. And like, I'm going to bet on myself, compared to this idea with a film. Cause it's such a big lift. It costs so much money. You need investors, and you need to be picked, kind of, you need to be chosen. And so that's something that has been kind of in the back of my mind. Is like one reason why maybe what I'm thinking is maybe what I'll do is I'll try to like continue to like write screenplays, but maybe I'll really focus on my novels, try to get those popping, like make as much noise as I can with those, get as hot as I can off those, and then use that attention to leverage that into some sort of arbitrage, where it's like people then come to me for offers, say, hey, could we turn this story into a screenplay or something, and kind of work my way in that way. Because the cool thing about novels and short story collections, personal essays, that stuff is you don't need a huge team to do it. Like you can do it yourself. It's pretty cheap too. Like it's very like kind of run and gun. I like that. You have more creative control compared to like any of these scripts. I'm sure if I was actually working with a team or with a director or something, they'd have a lot of notes and it's rewrites, and that's when you end up with. I was reading this fun screenplay book I loved. It was called How to make like great screenplays for fun and profit. And they were the guys that wrote Herbie Fully Loaded, whatever it was. It was the fucking talking car movie with Lindsay Lohan, where the car's like smiling on the cover. And they were like, this was not the movie that we wrote. They were like, we wanted to be like a street racing car that like kind of came to life, but was like kind of gritty, like kind of Fast and the Furious-y, action-y. And they had like one exec who did not understand the concept and had them do like a zillion rewrites and then end up just taking the script and gave it to somebody else. And like that's how you end up with fucking Herbie fully loaded of like a smiling car and a Lindsay Lohan lead. That it was interesting to sort of see behind the process, where for me, I'd almost want to just like sell the script and be like, okay, now you take it, do what you want, but like that's my idea for it and you do it what you want with it. But that idea of like having movies, like having some sort of film made with it, to me is really inspiring, because they're just so, they move you differently than books do. Love books. I'm Mr. Read, Mr. Write, like I love books. But I went to go see Mad Max, the new Mad Max yesterday. And I cried like the whole time. Like I'm not a big real life crier, which is weird. Like, I don't know what it is. I just don't cry a lot in real life. Like, but if it's something, an emotional moment or something, I'm not sure why, but I think it's that combination between the visuals and the music that just gets me. Like, good score, a good soundtrack, and like an emotional movie. And you might be like, "Kid, it's like this crazy action movie." Yes, I hear you, but it's also a crazy love story at the same time, and it's so tragic. It's like so brutally tragic that like I was just waterworks the whole time. And I'm not like sobbing, but you know, I was leaking a little bit. What you gonna know? I was leaking a little bit. So that like I haven't been able to stop thinking about that movie since I left the theater. So you just left me like it was heavy, and I was like, dude, that kind of effect, it would be so cool to have. And you get that with film because it's just more of this kind of like 3D immersive experience that you don't always have with a book, that I think is cool. And I'd love to be able to do something like that or with that someday. And so I have another idea for a screenplay, but I'll save that for another time because I need to develop that more. And now I'm like, man, I got this other idea now. I'm not sure if anything will come from this Rockstar screenplay. Is that where I'm hanging my like cape on? I'm like, I have to push for this to happen over my the next 10 years. I think it could be cool. It might not be. If nothing else, it was a great experiment, and I felt like I learned a ton in the process. And I'm excited about the story. I'm going to keep editing it, but I also realized that I think right now the key for me is the novels, is the writing in a way that I can leverage those books in a way that then later could make the screenwriting stuff easier. I'm going to keep the screenwriting up. Like I said, I have this idea for like a Pixar film that I've actually had for a while, but now that I have I understand story and plot and character more and like the format better, I'm like, oh, I could actually bring this thing to life too. That an animated film that would be really cool to do. But that's kind of the strategy, at least for right now, is like, how do I get shit hot? How do I actually pop in just myself off the books and then build enough attention and leverage that then I could turn that into something on the line where I'm not like going like begging people to give me money to make a film, but they'd be like, hey, this story's really cool. How can I let's collaborate. Let's make something happen together. So that's kind of what I realize right now, because the novel and that writing is within my control. And I can control that output just because I trust my work ethic and my creativity, and I really like doing that stuff, that I think I could do something cool there, and then maybe try to leverage one of those, either whether it's a book or through a relationship or something, into an opportunity down the line. But time will tell. So anyways, typical pod, 30 minutes, crazy creative one this time, but just want to let you in on the process, what that was like. Really looking forward to going home, eating good food, enjoying warmer weather. I'll talk to you about 33 laps around the sun next week, and what I learned from it. Thanks as always. Appreciate y'all. Check in the next one. Peace.